Good day, class. This is Sir Kenny, and today we will discuss the energy changes in a chemical reaction, which is module number 8 of STM006 or General Chemistry 2. Before we begin, let us have our lesson objectives. So, by the end of this lesson, you can say that yes, I can differentiate endothermic and exothermic processes, and yes, I can explain the first law of thermodynamics. These are the different topics that we will cover under the changes in energy in a chemical reaction. Let us go to the first one, which is endothermic versus exothermic processes. So how do heat packs and cold packs work? Now, chemical reactions will always involve energy changes. Making bonds and breaking bonds involve energy changes. When we speak of chemical energy, this is the energy stored in the chemical bonds of a substance. Ibig sabihin nito, sa lahat ng mga chemical reaction or the rearrangement of atoms, nagkakaroon tayo ng production of heat or release of heat. Now, when a bond is broken down, then ibig sabihin magre-release ng heat yung ating substances. But when a bond is created, mag-absorb ng heat ang ating substance in order for a bond to be possible. Let us go to the first definition, which is the exothermic process. A reaction is exothermic if more energy is released than absorbed. Coming from the word exo and thermic, exo meaning exit or lalabas or aalis, thermic meaning heat. So from the word itself, exothermic means the release of heat. So energy can be released often in the form of light or heat. In the burning of wood, as the wood burns, the chemical bonds of the wood is broken down. Now, in breaking these bonds, nagpo-produce siya ng energy in the form of heat and light. So we can say that the burning of wood is an exothermic process. So, in an exothermic process, the temperature of the surrounding increases. So yung init na nakapalibot dito sa burning of wood, tumataas ang temperature. So exothermic process is heat being given off or being released. The temperature of the substance rises and the product will feel hot. Pag hinawakan natin yung mainit na bagay, ang mangyayari dyan ay our hand will absorb the heat. So therefore, the object will feel hot. How do we determine if a chemical reaction is exothermic or endothermic? So, you may see an exothermic reaction written like this. Kapag ang energy or ang heat ay nasa product side, when we say product, kung saan nakapoint yung arrow, this is the arrow, kung saan nakapoint, so ibig sabihin dito yung product. Kapag yung energy or yung heat ay nasa side ng product, then therefore, the chemical reaction is exothermic. What about if energy is absorbed? So if more energy is absorbed than released, then the reaction is endothermic. So coming from the word itself, endo means enter, thermic means heat. So endothermic means it is where heat enters the object. So energy is absorbed. It is seen in chemical reaction of cooking of pancakes. The temperature of the surrounding will decrease kasi inabsorb ng object yung heat. It is the same as when ice is being held by your hands. So yung ice, malamig siya, yung kamay natin mainit. So yung heat coming from our hands will be absorbed by the ice kaya matutunaw yung ice. It is the same as cooking. When heat is introduced in the object, i-absorb niya yung heat para maluto siya. So endothermic, heat is taken in or is absorbed. The temperature of the substance drops and the product will feel cold or the object will feel cold. Ito yung dahilan kung bakit kapag hinawakan natin yung bakal, mas mararamdaman mo na malamig siyang hawakan kumpara sa kahoy na bagay. Yun ay dahil ang metal, ina-absorb niya yung heat. So the product will feel cold. How do we know if a chemical reaction is endothermic? By its chemical equation. Kapag ang energy or ang heat ay nasa reactant side. This is the reactant side, kung saan hindi nakapoint yung arrow or the opposite of the arrow. Kapag ang energy or ang heat ay nasa side ng reactant, then it is endothermic. So, Endothermic or exothermic, examples of thermochemical equation or a chemical equation which shows the heat change. So in this case, ang ating energy ay nasa product side. So this is exothermic. On number 2, nasa reactant side ang ating energy. So this is endothermic. On the third one, product, exothermic. On the fourth one, reactant, endothermic. On the last one, dahil merong sign ng delta dito, delta means introduction of heat, this is endothermic. Kasi itong phosphorus trichloride, kailangan niya ng heat in order to produce phosphorus and chlorine gas. So this is endothermic. What about these ones? Identify the following processes as endothermic or exothermic. Number 1, thermal decomposition of limestone. Thermal meaning heat. Number 1, heat is introduced, so therefore it is endothermic. Number 2, explosion of a firecracker triggered by a spark. So kapag ang firework na sindihan, it will explode and therefore it will release heat, kaya exothermic. Number 3, combustion. All forms of combustion or burning involves releasing of heat. So this is exothermic. You can pause the video and try answering on your own, and then we will give the answer in 2 seconds. So now you can resume and let us have the answers. Did you answer correctly? Now, if not, then you can try reviewing our lesson so far. If yes, then we can proceed to our next topic. On the second topic, we have the first law of thermodynamics. Now, when we speak of thermochemistry, it is the study of heat flow that accompanies a chemical reaction or a physical transformation, if it is either absorbed or released. Now, heat is the energy transfer due to change or difference in temperature until equilibrium is reached. In thermodynamics, the world is divided into a system and its surroundings. A system is a part of the world that we want to study. So for example, a reaction mixture in a flask. The surroundings consist of everything else outside the system or the entire universe. So for example, we have this image. This image, within the image, nandiyan yung box sa loob, that is the system. Ito yung pinag-aaralan natin. Yung focus natin ay nasa system. At lahat ng nakapalibot sa system ay tinatawag na surrounding. Kaya nakapalibot yung surroundings. The first law of thermodynamics states that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. Hindi pwedeng biglang mawala at hindi pwedeng biglang magkaroon ng energy sa isang system or sa isang object. Ang nangyayari lang ay this energy can be transformed from one form to another. So pwede lang na ma-transform yung ating energy from one form of energy to another form of energy. So for example, an example of this is the light bulb. So pagkasaksak mo ng light bulb, yung energy from the plug, which is the electrical energy, will travel towards the light bulb. At kapag in-on mo yung light bulb, the light bulb will produce light. So from electrical energy to light energy. Now, since the conversion of energy is not perfect, hindi 100% ng electricity or electrical energy will be transformed to light energy. Some of it will be transformed to heat energy. So, yung energy ay hindi nanggaling sa wala. Ito ay nanggaling sa plug, napunta sa ating light bulb, nag-produce siya ng light energy, and because of the inefficiency of light bulbs, dahil hindi 100% ay nako-convert into light, it will be transformed to heat energy. What about batteries? Sa batteries kasi ng phone natin, kapag yung battery ay charge natin, it is transformed from electrical energy sa plug papunta sa batteries ng phone natin, which is chemical energy. Now, kapag ginagamit mo yung phone mo, nanonood ka ng cat video sa YouTube, the chemical energy from the battery will be transformed to light para makita mo yung image and to sound. Now, because it is largely inefficient still, na because of energy inefficiency, hindi lahat ng electrical energy na pupunta sa battery ay nako-convert to chemical. Yung iba ay na-convert into heat. Kaya kung minsan, mainit yung phone kapag nag-charge. Also, yun din yung dahilan kapag ikaw ay gumagamit ng mga heavy apps or mga apps na kailangan ng matataas na RAM, ang nangyayari ay the phone will start to heat up. So, aside from the light energy and the sound energy produced by the phone, converted from chemical energy, yung energy din ay mako-convert into heat energy. So, nagkakaroon tayo ng transformation of energy from one form to another. Now, energy changes. Heat is positive when the process is endothermic. Heat is negative when the process is exothermic. So, ibig sabihin, kapag yung ating system ay nag-absorb ng heat or tumaas ang temperature ng ating system or yung ating object na pinag-aaralan, it is endothermic. And that, since it is endothermic, heat is positive. Kapag naman ang ating system ay nag-release ng heat, the process is exothermic. At since nabawasan ng heat ang ating system, then heat will be negative. So this is the first law of thermodynamics. It deals with the interconversion of energy between two forms, heat and work. Okay? Now, the first formula is the change in energy of the system is equal to the negative of the change of energy of the surrounding. Ang ibig sabihin lang nito, kung gaano karami yung nirelease ng heat ng system, yun yung i-absorb naman ng surrounding. Kung gaano karami yung heat na nirelease naman ng surrounding, yun lang ang i-absorb ni system. So, dapat equal sila. Hindi pwedeng maging mas mataas yung heat na i-absorb ng system samantalang mas mababa yung heat na ni-release ng surrounding. Okay? The second one is the change of energy of the system is equal to Q plus W, where Q is heat and W is work. Now, the symbol for Q, if it is positive or negative, and the symbol of W, if it is also positive or negative, is dependent on whether heat is released or absorbed by the system, or work is done by the system or is done for the system. So, unahin natin yung Q. Paano magiging positive ang Q? Q will become positive if heat is absorbed by the system. Paano naman siya magiging negative? It will become negative if heat is released by the system. Kapag ang ating focus ay system, magiging positive ang Q kapag heat is absorbed, magiging negative kapag heat is released by the system. Kapag ang focus natin ay surrounding, Q will become positive if the surrounding releases heat. Q will become negative if the surrounding absorbs heat. What about work or W? Work will become positive if work is done on the system. Kapag iba ang gumawa ng work para sa system. Work will become negative if work is done by the system or yung system mismo ang gumawa ng work. So let us have an example. Calculate the change in energy for the following processes and identify if endothermic or exothermic. Number 1, a gas releases 35 joules of heat as 84 joules of work was done to compress it. So our formula is the change in energy of the system is equal to Q plus W. Now let us substitute the values. Hanapin natin yung Q. Q is heat. So sinabi niya dito na a gas releases 35 joules of heat. So, nag-release daw ng heat ng 35 joules ang ating system. So, therefore, since nag-release siya ng heat, negative 35 joules. Negative kasi nag-release ng heat ang system. What about W? Our work is 84 joules. Ano naman ang kanyang symbol if it is positive or negative? So, sinabi dito na 84 joules of work was done to compress it. Hindi niya sinabi na 84 joules of work was done by the system. So dito, ang gumawa ng work para sa system ay iba. So magiging positive ang ating symbol for work. So negative 35 joules plus positive 84 joules, our change in heat of the system is positive 49 joules. So since this is positive, the process is endothermic. Mas marami siyang inabsorb na heat kesa sa ni-release. Number 2, a gas absorbs 48 joules of heat as it does 72 joules of work by expanding. So, same formula. The change in the energy of the system will be equal to, substitute the values for Q, it is heat. So, sinabi dito na a gas absorbs 48 joules of heat. So, nag-absorb yung ating system ng 48 joules, kaya positive. For work, 72 joules of work. Sabi niya dito, kaya 72. The symbol, positive or negative. Sino ang gumawa ng work? A gas absorbs 48 joules of heat as it does 72 joules of work. So, ibig sabihin ang gumawa ng work ay yung system, kaya magiging negative. So, positive 48 plus negative 72. So, negative 24 joules. So, since this is negative, mas madami siyang nirelease kaysa sa inabsorb. So, the process is exothermic. Now, try answering number 3 and number 4. Number 3 and number 4, kailangan nating i-derive ang ating formula, which is already done in these examples. So, from this one, so number 3, ang nawawala ay work. Kaya, dinerive na ang formula. So, work is equal to the change in the energy of the system minus the heat. And then number 4, from this one, ang nawawala ay how much heat. So, nawawala ang Q. So, it has been derived to Q is equal to the change in the energy of the system minus work. You can pause the video and then try answering this on your own. Now for the answers. So number 3 is negative 35 joules. Number 4 is negative 68 joules. So since this is negative, this is exothermic, as well as number 4. It is also negative, kaya it is also exothermic. So that ends our lesson for this topic. You can now work on your modules.